Prepare for a financial shockwave that's tearing through the British monarchy, exposing how centuries-old privilege is costing the modern taxpayer millions. This isn't just a story about a disgraced royal, it's the revelation of a deeply entrenched system where symbolic payments shield a massive, undisclosed financial burden, triggering a full-scale parliamentary investigation into the Crown's secret property empire. The hidden price of royal privilege. The history of the monarchy is one built on inherited privilege, but the way certain members of the royal family manage their property portfolio borders on financial exploitation of public resources. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, despite being formally stripped of his HRH title and duties, has demonstrated an unwavering ability to leverage these ancient, opaque agreements for vast personal benefit. The heart of the controversy lies in an arrangement known as a peppercorn rent, a phrase that sounds whimsical but carries enormous financial weight. Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor may have cost the royal coffers millions of pounds in lost income by exploiting a generous rent arrangement on a flat inhabited by his daughters Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. Andrew, who was formally stripped of his title as Prince and the Duke of York, had taken advantage of a rental agreement on royal properties. This included his own residence at Royal Lodge, actually less a lodge than a multi-million-pound mansion. His agreement on the property saw Andrew paying what's called a peppercorn rent. This is a legal term for a symbolic payment of a peppercorn, i.e., something of low value, to establish that someone is effectively getting something for free, or very little. The deal on his primary residence, the sprawling, multi-million-pound Royal Lodge, established a clear trade-off. Andrew was responsible for the property's upkeep and maintenance, but was entirely exempted from paying rent. While maintenance costs are substantial, they pale in comparison to the rental value of such an estate in the open market. This arrangement sets a precedent where private financial gain is facilitated by public ownership of the asset. That meant that while Andrew was responsible for the upkeep and maintenance of the 30-room Royal Lodge, he didn't have to pay rent. The £3 million peppercorn. The true public fury stems from the discovery that this lucrative peppercorn principle was applied not just to his own mansion, but to a separate, highly desirable London property used by his daughters. The location alone, St. James's Palace, should place the rental price firmly in the stratosphere of the capital's housing market. The figures revealed in the Mail on Sunday's investigation expose a breathtaking disparity between royal payment and market reality. And now it has emerged that the disgraced former prince had a similar agreement on a residence which was occupied by his daughters. An investigation by the Mail on Sunday found that Andrew had rented a 4-bedroom flat in St. James's Palace in London for £1,600 a month, a bargain for even a studio in some parts of the capital. It emerged that the rental value of the apartment could be some £20,000 a month, or £240,000 a year. A 4-bedroom flat in a central London palace for only £1,600 a month is, quite simply, an absurdity. The comparison with apartment 29A in the same palace, which commanded £20,000 a month on the open market in 2015, shatters the illusion of fairness. Andrew's annual payment for his daughter's flat was less than a private tenant would pay for 1 month in a comparable royal property. The comparison was drawn with another flat in St. James's Palace, apartment 29A. In 2015, this property was put on the market for £20,000 a month. This meant that the annual rent that Andrew paid for the apartment was less than the monthly rent if it had been let out on the open market. Andrew's daughters lived in the property for some 14 years, meaning that the privileged arrangement may have cost the royal coffers some £3.1 million in lost rental income over that period. The financial toll on the public purse is estimated at an astonishing £3.1 million in lost rental income over the 14 years the princesses occupied the flat. This figure represents tangible funds that could have flowed into the royal coffers, and subsequently into public funds, had the property been leased at market rates. Furthermore, the property itself was made rentable at a huge public cost, a £250,000 refurbishment paid for entirely by the taxpayer just before Andrew's lease began in 2008. The public paid to renovate a home that a royal then received for a pittance. The call for transparency, ending financial secrecy. The public outrage has been magnified by the historical wall of secrecy surrounding the Crown's finances. Former Liberal Democrat MP Norman Baker is now demanding that the parliamentary inquiry not only look at Andrew's arrangements, but expose the entire portfolio of royal leaseholds and rents. Andrew's lease on the lavish apartment in St. James's Palace, a royal residence originally built in 1536 by Henry VIII, began back in 2008. At the time the flat, which has 2 reception rooms and a fitted kitchen, had undergone a £250,000 refurbishment at the taxpayers' expense. Former Liberal Democrat MP Norman Baker told the Daily Mail that an inquiry into royal rents and leaseholds by a cross-party committee of MPs should be widened. He said, "The royals are constantly underpaying what they should do." Mr. Baker added, "The Public Accounts Committee needs to go much wider than the inquiry into Royal Lodge. They need to look at the whole business of the royal family's property portfolio, what they own and what they pay." Mr. Baker's claim that the royals are constantly underpaying what they should do is validated by the revelation that Princess Alexandra pays a ridiculously low rent of just £225 a month for a property in Richmond. This highlights a pattern, not an isolated incident. The crux of the problem is the royal family's exemption from Freedom of Information requests, which effectively hides these financial deals from public view and makes genuine oversight impossible. The former MP also drew attention to the fact that the royal family are exempt from Freedom of Information requests. This makes their affairs more difficult for the public to understand. The inquiry by the Public Accounts Committee is now set to examine rental arrangements in the royal family. This goes beyond Andrew's agreements, and will also look at a rent of just £225 a month paid by Princess Alexandra for a property in Richmond. The Public Accounts Committee is now mandated to lift the veil on the royal property book. This investigation is no longer just about Andrew, it's about holding an ancient institution accountable to modern democratic standards, demanding transparency, and ending the staggering financial subsidies enjoyed by a handful of privileged individuals at the expense of the millions